In August 1997, the world stopped. News of a car crash in Paris spread across the globe in minutes. And with it, the shocking realization that the most photographed woman in the world, Diana, Princess of Wales, was gone. She was just 36, a mother of 2 young princes, a woman who had redefined what it meant to be royal, and in doing so, had changed Britain forever. But her death did not just break hearts. It shook the foundations of the British monarchy itself. It exposed deep fractures between the royal family and the public, forced a centuries-old institution to confront modern reality, and set into motion changes that still shape the House of Windsor today. This is the story of how one woman's life and death changed the crown. To understand why Diana's death had such impact, we have to understand who she was and what she came to represent. Born Diana Frances Spencer in 1961, she grew up within Britain's aristocracy but far from the palaces of power. She was shy, idealistic, and kind, a young woman with a genuine compassion for people, something that would later define her public life. When she married Prince Charles in 1981, the world fell in love with her. The wedding was a global spectacle, watched by over 750 million people, and the beginning of a modern fairy tale. But behind the grandeur, the reality was more complex. Diana's marriage was troubled from early on. The age difference, differing expectations, and public scrutiny weighed heavily on her. Over time, Diana became more than a royal figure. She became a symbol of empathy, authenticity, and vulnerability in a world, and an institution often seen as cold and distant. Her visits to hospitals, her work with AIDS patients, her campaign to ban landmines, these acts redefined the role of a princess. She didn't just attend ceremonies, she touched people, held their hands, and looked them in the eye. To millions, she was the people's princess, a title that captured both her warmth and her defiance of tradition. By 1997, Diana was no longer part of the royal family officially. Her divorce from Prince Charles had been finalized the previous year. She had lost the title, Her Royal Highness, but in the eyes of the public, she remained their princess. Diana's life after the divorce was one of reinvention. She stepped back from many royal duties, but deepened her humanitarian work. She traveled to Bosnia to visit landmine victims, walked through active minefields in Angola, and used her fame to push global attention toward forgotten causes. At the same time, she became a relentless target for the tabloid press. Every movement, every rumored romance, every moment of privacy became front-page news. The paparazzi followed her relentlessly. Fame and danger became inseparable. That summer, she began a relationship with Dodi Fayed, son of Egyptian businessman Mohammed Al-Fayed. The media frenzy intensified. Every photograph was worth a fortune. And then came August 31st, 1997. Diana and Dodi were in Paris, staying at the Ritz Hotel. Around midnight, they left the hotel, attempting to escape paparazzi waiting outside. Their driver, Henri Paul, drove a black Mercedes through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel at high speed. Moments later, the car struck a pillar. The crash killed Henri Paul and Dodi Fayed instantly. Diana was critically injured and rushed to Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, where doctors fought to save her. Despite their efforts, she was pronounced dead just before dawn. News broke in the early hours of Sunday morning. The world woke to disbelief. Television screens filled with breaking headlines. Anchors struggled to maintain composure. For millions, it felt impossible. The woman who had survived public heartbreak, who had walked through minefields and faced cameras with grace, was gone. The grief that followed was unlike anything Britain had seen before. Within hours, people began arriving at Kensington Palace with flowers, letters, and candles. Within days, the sea of tribute stretched for acres, an ocean of color and sorrow. Strangers hugged in the streets, radio stations suspended normal programming, churches opened their doors to anyone who wanted to pray. But as the public wept, the monarchy remained silent. The Queen stayed at Balmoral Castle in Scotland with Prince Charles and Diana's sons, William and Harry. The royal family's first priority was to protect the boys, to shield them from the media storm. But to the public, the silence felt cold, even callous. Where was the flag at half-mast? Where was the statement of sorrow? Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace, demanding acknowledgement. For a brief moment, the divide between crown and country seemed absolute. As public pressure grew, the Queen faced an unprecedented situation. For centuries, the royal family had remained detached from public emotion. On September 5th, 5 days after the crash, Queen Elizabeth II returned to London. She met mourners outside Buckingham Palace, accepted flowers, and spoke to grieving citizens face to face. The following evening, she delivered a live television address to the nation, one of the most significant broadcasts of her reign. Her words were simple, heartfelt, and historic. She spoke as a grandmother mourning the loss of her grandson's beloved mother. She praised Diana's warmth, kindness, and sense of fun. For many, that speech marked the moment when the Queen reconnected with her people. The tension began to ease, replaced by shared grief. On September 6, 1997, the world watched as Diana was laid to rest. Her coffin, draped in the royal standard, was carried from Kensington Palace to Westminster Abbey. Over 2 million people lined the streets of London. More than 2 billion watched on television worldwide. The image of young Princes William and Harry walking behind their mother's coffin remains one of the most powerful symbols of modern royal history. 2 boys, forced into unimaginable grief under the gaze of the world. The service at Westminster Abbey was solemn, but deeply human. Elton John's performance of Candle in the Wind, rewritten in Diana's honor, became the anthem of a generation's mourning. Outside, the silence of the crowd was broken only by the sound of bells. It was a funeral not just for a princess, but for innocence, for the belief that fairy tales always end happily. Princess Diana's death was more than a tragedy. It was a mirror. It reflected a nation's grief, a family's silence, and the fragile balance between tradition and change. In life, she brought warmth to the crown. In death, she brought reform to the monarchy. The world she left behind is one she helped to create. More open, more emotional, and more aware of the human heart behind the crown. Her story endures not because of the way she died, but because of the way she lived, with compassion, courage, and the rare ability to touch the world simply by being herself. And if you enjoyed this exploration of royal mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell for more deep dives into the secrets history still hides.